Welcome to your Conscious Choices for Wellness podcast, hosted by B. Crutelli. This is a space for everyone to learn anything and everything related to healthy healing, including naturopathic medicine, music, dance, yoga, meditation, eco-fashion, mothering, and organic lifestyle choices. Topics for expanding universal consciousness. Come join me weekly as we delve in and begin this journey, sharing valuable content gathered over the past 3 decades, helping to support a healthier and more sustainable future for all. Hello and welcome to Conscious Choices for Wellness today. This podcast is made for you to help expand consciousness for our future and our children and grandchildren. And I took last week off because, yes, I'm a Leo and it was my birthday week. So I pretty much have been on a little mini vacay, taking a little time off in space. Made my way down to LA. Haven't been down here for almost a year. I wanted to come down earlier in the year, but then the fires broke out. And so I decided to stay away for a while. And I made it. I'm here. And I left my son's apartment and came up to the hills just to get away from some of the hustle and bustle. And so I'm in the lovely Hollywood Hills, Sunset Mountains, overlooking the entire city. And I found a quiet spot up here in a neighborhood. I wanted to record outside, but it is a little breezy. And so I think there would be a lot of feedback from the wind. So there may be some sounds as there is a kid riding his electric bike up and down the road, making a little noise right now. There may be an occasional vehicle that drives by, but other than that, it's fairly quiet here. And I am speaking today on our egoic minds, our ego. And this is a fascinating topic, of course. It is one that we should all be looking at, I believe. The egoic mind refers to the part of the mind that is identified with a sense of self, often based on thoughts, emotions, and our past experiences. It's a mental construct that can lead to suffering, limiting our true potential. Instead of being present, the egoic mind often dwells on the past or the future, creating narratives that reinforce a false sense of self. So, yes, this is something that a lot of us are very locked into in our culture. And I know many of us are searching for ways to be more healthy and whole. And I think part of stripping this egoic mind that has been ingrained in us, in our culture, for in many ways over time, is very important to our true essence and who we are. And so I'm going to explore this more in today's episode, as well as diving into ways that we can escape this and that we can lessen this part of self, because it is a part of self. It is one that we are meant to have being here on this planet. We can't really be here without it, but it has taken over our true self and has blocked our authentic purpose. Many of us are struggling with this, and we can't see who we truly are and what our purpose is anymore because it's been so obstructed by the ego. So where we keep this self locked away from the here and now, right? So straying from every present moment and losing presently precious time of being. The state of being is mostly not true. So why are we constantly stuck within it, dancing amongst it, struggling and fighting against it? So, what's an ego death? Have you heard of an ego death? I don't know. I feel like it's a fairly new concept to most. Maybe it's something that's been around since the beginning of time. The most liberating identity crisis, dissolving the illusion of quote unquote me to find freedom and peace. That is a great definition of what an ego death is. So, who are you without you? The you that you think is you. Have you ever thought about that? What ego death really means? Obviously, not a literal death, definitely a dissolution of the distorted self. Shedding identity layers created by conditioning, survival patterns, and external expectations. The quote unquote me that wants control of everything, needing validation, needing to feel a sense of safety at all times, fear-led. Yes, very fear-led. These aspects we fall into must be loosened up with less grip for the door of real transformation to open up. According to a recent article in the Recovery Elevator, Why is the Ego So Dangerous Today? I'm putting a link in the show notes to this. They say because it's insatiable. It constantly seeks validation, comfort, distraction, and for many of us, that includes alcohol or maybe some other substance, right? To escape what we are, forever trying to hide, or, it's almost like a lot of us are trying to hide, or we're ashamed of this sense of self that really is like not even our true self. It's something that we know doesn't feel right in our bodies because it's not really who we are. And so we are dancing around with it and trying to deal with it on a daily. And this pursuit of more and more and more leads us to numb, isolate, and escape, right? We're trying to find more. We're searching all the time because there's something missing, because we're not really like who we are. We're not really like loving our true self. We're not really like embracing who we are. We don't even know yet, right? Understanding this makes it clear how ego and addiction recovery are connected. The ego thrives in denial and disconnection, while recovery invites humility and truth. So I kind of went off on a little bit of a tangent in the middle of what this article stated, but I quoted it in the blog, what they had said, and it really made sense to me. When I say in the blog, that's my blog that I write in Substack, and then I do the podcast based on what I write every week. So in my opinion, here's my ego talking. Addiction is an insatiable disease. That's my opinion. That's my judgment of what addiction is. That made sense. It's definitely an insatiable disease because we're addicted to something. So we're trying to satiate ourselves with a substance that is going to make us feel better, right? Most people are so completely identified by the voice in their head, the incessant stream of involuntary and compulsive thinking, as well as all the emotions that accompany it, that we may be described as being possessed by our mind. If we are completely unaware of this, then we resonate on this superficial level, being only a thinker all up in our heads. This is the egoic mind spinning freely with the quote unquote I self in every thought, every memory, every interpretation, opinion, viewpoint, reaction, and emotion. This is utterly unconsciousness, spiritually speaking. Remembering that we are spiritual beings having a human experience is key. Your thinking, the content of your mind, is of course conditioned by the past, your upbringing, culture, your family background, and so on. The central core of all the mind's activity consists of certain repetitive and persistent thoughts, emotions, and reactive patterns that you identify with most strongly. This entity is the ego itself. In most cases, when you say I, it is the ego speaking, not the pure essence of you. The I self consists of thought and emotion, of a bundle of memories you identify with as me and my story, of habitual roles you play without knowing it, of collective identifications such as your nationality, religion, race, social class, political preference, opinions of many kinds, external appearances, even your long-standing resentments or concepts of yourself as better than or not being good as good as others, as a success or a failure. When ego death happens, this could be through having a deep meditation experience, or every time you meditate. Some people can get into that state as quickly as a few minutes. Others, it might take as long as 10 minutes. But that is letting go. That is letting go, right? And it's letting go of that ego self. And it's connecting you with your highest self. Having psychedelic experiences, this also disconnects you from the ego. It just does, right? They're discovering more how that happens, although it's probably been discovered a long time ago, back in the 60s and 70s when the first research was done on that. Yoga and breathwork practices also take you away from that ego self. They bring you within, they bring you in the present moment. And yes, in near-death experiences, which I have yet to have, I'm not saying I want one, but I have heard that near-death experiences definitely are going to separate yourself, right? Because you're not here anymore on this planet. And when we're here, we come back to our conditioning, we come back to what we know, and the ego is part of that. What else creates an ego death? Intense life changes, like in loss of a loved one, heartbreak, burnout from, maybe working at a job that you don't really love, chronic illness, chronic pain. Any of these can trigger an ego death naturally. It just naturally separate you from that ego self. It can be gradual or a sudden holy fucking shit awakening moment, right? Like that can happen, I believe, in like deep meditative states. Sometimes when we hit a rock bottom, that can also, just like really shake your world, and just like you have no other choice but to wake the fuck up and make, severe life changes for the better. And how does this feel? I did some research and a lot of it made sense. I have experienced my own ego death experiences. I have experienced my own ego death at different times, and it's quite peaceful. It's quite bringing you into the present moment, definitely bringing you closer to spirit and giving you a sense of peace and insight, or really being able to hear those pings, as I learned the term through TBM. Pings are, they're like words, like whispers from God, from source, that speak to you and tell you. Like sometimes when I wake up in the morning and my mind is more clear from letting go of all the garbage that's not needed, the processing through my dreams, and then when you wake up, or if you get up very early and meditate, you can hear these pings, these little, like, I said words of wisdom, that come through and tell you things that you need to know. Now, are we going to remember those things, or do we need to write them down? That's another thing, because I believe these are like some of the best pieces of knowledge that we are given. And that is when when we're not being run by the ego. That is when we are more in our pure essence state of being. And these moments of pure essence and connection with everything, right? That's how we may feel when we are separating from our ego. Disorientation, it could feel like the ground is gone, like you're just kind of like floating. You're just, maybe not super grounded, or maybe you feel like you're super, super grounded. Fear, grief, or liberation, sometimes all at once. These feelings ignite, and that equals a release, like a release of the emotions that are holding you back, that are stuck inside, the negativity, things that, are blocking us from being one with our higher self and being led by our pure essence, not by our ego in every step that we're making on a daily. So, yeah, it's really important to try to practice, I believe, states of being in an ego death, or ways to get there. So I can't tell you how amazing it feels to have these moments of pure presence and connection with everything. That's really like how it feels. So why do we resist it and grip the ego self so tightly? Well, the ego's job is survival, right? It fears annihilation. Literally, it's serving a purpose for you, for us, in making our decisions while here on earth is one thing to respect, right, about it. And notice, having awareness around feeling it and learning to let go when we need to. Society rewards this attachment to identity, aka success, aka status, aka the roles we play, right? That's the attachment that we have and what society has pressed upon us, these things that are important. And so we have this ego. So asking where this societal monarchy came from, and do your authentic values align with this truth? That is really the bottom line. So integrating, coming back from an ego death. If you feel like you aren't here enough and you need to be, you don't want to get too far, right? Unless you're just like living in the woods and you have this, blessed life of not being part of society as much as most of us have to be. That's great. I would love that life. Let me know how to get there. But if you're not that person and you need to, have your ego death experiences to, come back to who you are and to lessen the stress of this life, how can you integrate back within? So here are some ways that can help with this. Grounding practices, like spending time in nature, taking your shoes off. Again, I'm a super advocate of taking your shoes off and going barefoot on the earth, not so much on like the pavement or, places that aren't the actual earth, that weren't man-made, but places that Creator made and that connect you with your microbiome and connect you with your true self, right? Because we are connected to that self, that nature, where we came from. And mindful movement, coming back into the present moment, dancing totally gets you away from your ego. Some people might think it's led by ego. It can be. but it can also be quite the opposite. Simple daily mindful routines, even just like doing the dishes, brushing your teeth, going for a walk, just sitting and meditating, doing your yoga practice, doing these simple things daily in a routine-like manner will so bring you out of the ego state into your true self and will help you to feel your best and live your best life, I promise. I've been doing this more and more, and it is definitely the way to go. Gentle self-care with loving awareness. Okay? Self-care, self-love. It's what we all should be doing, because if we don't do that first for ourselves, then we cannot spread the love. We cannot emanate the love because we're not feeling love already. We can only get love first from ourselves, and from giving ourselves self-care and love and being aware of that. And then the love will emanate out of us, and we'll have so much more to give to the world. Remember, this isn't the time for major life decisions. Okay? So, yeah, it's just not really the time to be making major life decisions unless you know that you're hearing something directly from source. If Creator is speaking with you and you know it's direct and that it will help you make a major life decision, then of course listen to that. And those are times when you can hear that. But you really want to make sure it's coming from a grounded state and that you're definitely, connected and hearing from your highest self. Journaling. If I wasn't trying to prove anything, who would I be? Right? When we're trying to prove something, we're coming from our egoic state again. Always. So if you weren't doing that, if you weren't trying to prove something to the world or, get recognition or be noticed or, we all want to be heard, but that is usually, honestly, if it's just, trying to be noticed from others. And it's a lot of times coming from our ego. And sometimes that may work for some, but we really need to be doing it for ourselves, and it needs to be in alignment with our purpose here. Okay, and if it's not, then you may get some fulfillment out of it temporarily, but it's not going to satiate you for the long haul. This is rediscovering your soul's purpose, your true authenticity, allowing new values and priorities to emerge naturally. Ego death in daily life. How can we do this on a daily? Is there a way, or is this just something that happens every once in a while? Some people, they reset. They do these kind of ego death, spiritual path journeys, every few months, or some may not need to do it but every 6 months. And they say, that's really helpful. I'm sure that it is, but I also think it could be done in microdoses on a daily. This is usually not a one-time event. Many ego deaths happen whenever we let go of how it should be. Whenever we let go of how it should be. Okay, how we think it should be. Letting go, surrendering is huge. And I and many have learned this. Respect the teachers of this. There are many. I mentioned in the blog at the beginning, Alan Watts. I have not mentioned him yet, but he talks a lot about this, as well as Eckhart Tolle and Carl Jung, who I will mention here in a minute. There are many, many teachers that speak to this and I highly respect them, and I think they know a thing or two about life, and we should be listening to these great mentors. So being open-minded. I feel like I've been very blessed in a way my entire life, as far as I can remember, considering myself to have an open mind. And I feel like that's gotten me pretty far in a lot of ways, because I haven't had the easiest life, and I've still just kept my faith and kept going and found ways just to surrender to the process. Each small surrender opens more space for authenticity. When we can't feel our truly natural soul essence, we over-identify with our earthly conditioning. We become what happened to us. Then even the most beautiful relationships, careers, or spiritual practices feel unsatisfying in any given space and time. And that's really sad. That's really sad. That's what I'm talking about. If we can't let go of the earthly conditioning and we're so stuck up in our ego, we may even manifest beautiful relationships, a career that is abundant, maybe in money. It's giving us that abundance. We're getting financial freedom from it in ways, but it's never good enough. And we're chasing, ways to fill emptiness inside, because we're living in our egoic mind that's running us constantly. And so Carl Jung defined the ego as the center of consciousness, the part of us that organizes our experiences, helps us function, navigating relationships, and making decisions. We need an ego to participate in life. The problems arise when we mistake the ego the whole of who we are. Letting this part of self here guide every waking and even dream state appearances. Studying human design has brought me clarity into what my true essence is and who I am here to be. When we know ourselves more, then and only then are we free. So as I am still currently studying my human design chart, and I would recommend anybody that has not gotten their chart, it's an easy thing to find online, just like your astrology chart. It will show you more of who you are, more than astrology. It's like 10 times more than astrology. It puts like everything together that's out there that kind of tells you who you are. And it is an amazing tool to really understand what you're supposed to be doing and kind of guide you to your soul's purpose. And I know one of the biggest things for me is that I'm supposed to listen to my gut. I'm supposed to kind of pause before making decisions. And that's why I feel like I've really been indecisive, because I wasn't living by that. And I would make maybe too quick of decisions throughout my life and not really listen to my gut. And that needs to lead me. I need to be led by that, because I am really led by emotions. I have a really defined emotional center, which means I really feel everything. So I need to stop, maybe even for 24 hours, and then before a major decision, and then is my body saying yes? Like, it has to be a complete yes to making that decision, or is it saying, I don't know, I'm not really sure? And if I'm being led to, I'm not really sure, then it's probably not the right thing for me. I probably should run the other direction and not go in that direction or make that wrong decision. And Eckhart Tolle reframes the ego as identification with form, stories, roles, past and future. He teaches that the ego is sustained by unconscious thought patterns and emotional reactions, especially those rooted in fear or lack. Noticing, being aware as much as possible of when and where we are reacting, from learned behaviors gives one a fresh start into the next level of consciousness. This journey is always a choice in every moment. And I wish more human beings to be set free from egoic belief systems that are causing damaged lives everywhere. So I thank you so much for listening today. If you're still here with me, please drop a like or a comment, and I will put any links in the show notes for more reading and my references. And I hope you have a beautiful week. We're in Leo season. This is my favorite time of the year. Oh, last thing, I just made some lovely tinctures I finished making this week that are lavender. I have lemon balm, and I have yarrow. So those are my latest tinctures that I just made. And if you'd like one, please let me know, and I will send it to you wherever you are. I promise. And these are for stress, environmental pollution, detoxing, and also for viral support. So many, many good medicines. And have a beautiful week. We'll see you next time. Love and peace. Bye.
Thank you all so very much for listening today. I genuinely hope that you learned something, and I invite you to join me each week so you never miss a conscious wellness beat. This podcast holds a special place in my heart dedicated to my evolution here, my passionate mission to spread more consciousness for the much needed wellness on Earth. Come join me as a guest as well. Let's collaborate, making change for future generations.